Uh-oh. Holy cow, looks like we're starting over, guys. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss. Hoping this is working. I got a brand new phone. If it's not working, if I'm not seeing that we're on here, I will switch over and use the old phone. So let me see here. I'm trying to find it, and I'm not finding it. Oh no, somebody's watching. Hey, anyway, I'm going to start over. Bob Lusk, the Pond Boss, hanging out right here, balmy North Texas. I see Jacob West. Jacob, I'm broadcasting from a brand new phone. So I'm hoping that it's working. So anyway, I've been informed that my topic tonight is going to be about what summer does to your pond. So I see Jacob West, Christopher Aguilar, the Crawdad Daddy checking in. Steve Lewis is from Mott Springs, Arkansas. He's checking in. So we'll get at it. You guys, if you have questions, pitch them to me because I'm ready to hear them. And right now, what I'm doing is I'm scrolling down my laptop to see because I want to be able to see the questions. I see Mary Lancaster, Mike DeMint, Zach Bollinger checking in from one of the northern tier states. So I'm going to hit refresh and see if I can find it here on my laptop so I can see what's going on. Kim Moore, you guys know the deal. You know the drill. Oh, there it is. I think I found it. Holy cow. Here it comes. I think I found it. Woo! Kim Moore, you guys know the deal. You know the drill. Better turn that off. Let's get rid of the noise so you don't have to listen to me talk twice. All right. Hey, you guys know what's going on here. Pond Boss Magazine. There it is right there. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comment section. Click like, share this to your newsfeed. You will be eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat. Really nice hat right there, kids. And a mug. And I know what Jacob West is doing right now. He's saying it out loud and he can't help it. He can't help it. A Pond Boss mug that knows how to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. We don't know how it knows, but it knows. Ed Brewer's in. Good to see Ed. Tom Blasdell. Daniel Hendrick. Hi, Daniel. Good to see you, man. I want to catch up with you here in a couple of days or sooner, if we can. Let's see here. Kim Moore's got it. Holy cow. Mike Cottrell. I see Mike Cottrell checking in. So tonight, the girls told me that they've been getting a few phone calls where people are a little bit worried about the what summer's going to do to their ponds. Holy cow, there's Frank James. He's already got a question up here. Bob, what are the odds that an electrofishing survey would not turn up a single threadfin shad even though 10,000 were stocked a couple of months ago? Does this likely mean none survived, or are you telling me there's still a chance? Okay, so I'm going to tell you this. Frank. On when your water temperature is like it is now, where if you measure the top foot, if you're not aerating, the water temperature is going to be in the upper 80s right now in your northeast Texas or East Texas lake. So those threadfin are very likely going to be deeper than what the electrofishing boat can get. And when you stock threadfin shad, you're stocking biomass. It's a low amount, even though the head count might be high. So you won't see any threadfin shad in an electrofishing survey unless they're abundant. So when you first stock them, you're probably not going to see those in an electrofishing survey. But you'll start seeing the babies. And the babies are going to be rippling around the surface probably in another 3 to 4 weeks. And you'll start what looks like late in the afternoon when you have a decent plankton bloom. You'll see what looks like raindrops hitting the top of the water. And that's threadfin shad coming to the surface and they're feeding. So yes, there is a chance that you've got threadfin shad. I wouldn't give up on them yet. I would just about bet it. I see Connie Bingham's phone, which means Fred's got it. Fred had rotator cuff surgery on his good arm. So I don't know how you're holding that phone, but I'm glad to see you on there, Fred. Fred's having some issues with filamentous and duckweed, sounds like. Fred's kind of been, he's had surgery here a couple of weeks ago, so he hasn't been able to get out and take care of his pond like he normally does. Jacob West, what can cause a pond with a great bloom go away in less than 2 weeks? We now have almost 4 feet of visibility. I'll tell you exactly what that could be. That could be that there was a fresh influx of water, good influx of nutrients, and the nutrients bloomed. When I saw your lake about 3 weeks ago, it had a perfect bloom, but those blooms mature. So if there's not enough nutrients to continue feeding the bloom, because what happens, guys, is when you get a plankton bloom, it starts off as microscopic algae. then the zooplankton start to grow and reproduce. And then insects start to grow and feed on the zooplankton. So what happens is it's a food chain where the green algae is there in mass, but it gets consumed by zooplankton, and those things can reproduce exponentially as well. And as they do, this is part of the summertime gig, guys. So as those zooplankton really start to feed on that phytoplankton, they can consume it and they can eat it. When they run out of food, then you have what's called a plankton crash. Now what typically happens is those nutrients will go and cycle back in, especially in a new lake where you got a bunch of greenery that used to be terrestrial plants or decomposing. You're going to get another flush and another influx of nutrients. So it wouldn't surprise me if you go back the next time and you'll see a plankton bloom kicking in gear again, which I would expect that. Now, this time of year, oh my gosh, when the water temperature is in the upper 80s in the top foot, and it's a little cooler below that, I would not fertilize a lake now. You'd be asking for troubles. So it's absolutely normal for a plankton bloom, especially in new water, in a new lake, to run its course quickly, like in 10 days to 20 days. In that range right there, it can sure run its course. Now what happens, it starts off as a bright, vivid green, and then the color begins to shift to more of an olive green, to kind of an olive brown, then a brownish olive, and then it looks almost tannic. And when that happens, that's when the clarity begins to increase, because what's happened is all those zooplankton, they've either been consumed or they've run out of food, or probably both. Because you've got bluegill, you've got fathead minnows, you got red ear sunfish, that are feeding, and they're baby. You got babies of all those fish now. They feed on zooplankton. So a bunch of that zooplankton got consumed, but don't be surprised to see another bloom kick in and start going again. There's my wife, Debbie Dobbs Lusk. She's been gone for about 3 weeks now. I guess she came home for about a week. So out of the last 5 weeks she's been gone for, being memes, helping out with grandkids. That's what happens when you're our age. Your kids grow up, then they reproduce, and then you get to go play with little bitty mini me's and mini you's and mini us's. And that's what she's doing right now. She'll be home here in a couple days. We got another grandchild with a dance recital on Friday night. We won't miss that. Justin Shink, summer means extra pumping, lots of growing fish and feeding. That's exactly what it means. It sure is. Looky there, there's Neil. Neil, I'm going to try not to butcher your name. Valon, man, I got it, I hope. Let's see, Carlos Pinto is sharing it with his buddy Nick. Perry Cook, Jeff Thompson. In a half-acre bluegill hatchery pond, 1,200 3-inch copper nose, how many feedings, how many pounds per day? Well, I'm going to tell you the answer to that is going to be based on if you have the ability to exchange water. If you have the ability to exchange water, I'd be really aggressive. But I tell you, if you've got a feeder on that pond, and you got 1,200 3-inch copper nose, I presume that your goal is to feed those fish to where they're going to grow larger. But let me tell you what's going to happen. You guys mark my words on this. I've seen it happen over and over and over. When you've got a half-acre bluegill hatchery pond, you got 1,200 3-inch copper nose, they're big enough to reproduce. So it won't be long. I'd give it 10 days or 2 weeks. I'm not sure. I don't remember where you are, Jeff. But don't be real surprised if you start seeing beds with bluegills spawning and you end up with 10 to 15,000 baby bluegills next fall. But for the purpose of trying to grow these fish to larger sizes, I would aggressively feed them. I would feed them, let me see here. I want to see what your question was again, make sure I don't miss it. How many feedings in pounds per day? 1,200 3-inch copper-nosed bluegill are probably going to weigh about 20 pounds max. So 20 pounds of fish and eat 3% of their body weight every day. So 3% of 20 is less than a pound. So here's what I would do. I would feed close to a pound of fish food every day, spread out over 3 feedings. Now, if you really want to make those fish grow, buy some Purina Aqua Max 500. It's small pellets that those fish can eat, and feed them by hand and see how much they're consuming if you can. And then what you do is just let them feed until they're full. Give them about 4 or 5 hours, do it again. Give them 4 or 5 hours, do it again. Because if you do that, they're going to be a little bit more focused on growth rates and competing for food than they are competing for space to reproduce. But some of those fish are going to reproduce, and you're going to end up with a whole bunch of little bitty bluegills this fall. There's Michael Eric checking in from Iowa. Michael Gray, Chris and Carrie Lusk. Good last name. Michael Gray's checking in from Tennessee. Got a great article. Hey, you know what? Man, I don't have a copy of it yet. We have changed the layout of Palm Boss Magazine. You're gonna love it. We compartmentalized the departments, and we did the feature stories and all that. And I just got a text. Grandson Sawyer is watching us down there with memes. They're sitting on the couch watching Papa talk about fish. Who loves you, baby? That's what I don't know what you guys do, but with my grandkids, I look at them and say, "Who loves you, baby?" And they've all been brainwashed, programmed to say, "Papa loves me." That's what I am. I'm Papa to those guys. Let's see here. Karen Lucas, Tyler Lucas. Hey, Tyler, good to see you, buddy. Thanks for checking in. Chance Birch, good to see Chance. He's got the deal. Hashtag Palm Boss Magazine. Click like, share to your timeline. You're eligible for a drawing for a Palm Boss hat, Palm Boss mug, and I'm sure Leanne will be doing that drawing for us next week. Let's see here. Justin Shanks asking, what's the maximum catfish you can fit in a half-acre pond with feeding and aeration? You know what? You can put 1,000 in there. Now, don't put 1,000 in there unless you're going to start to harvest them when they're 1.5 pounds and get them out. You want to selectively cull the fastest growing fish for food at that stocking rate. You know, for a half-acre pond, you can stock 1,000. I've stocked 500. I've stocked 1,000. But you better be taking those things out because some of them are going to grow faster than the others. So once they start hitting 1.25 pounds to 1.5 pounds, start harvesting them. So I would not put that many fish in a half-acre pond if I did not have a practical way to harvest a lot of them at one time. Because I'll go in there, with 1,000 head, I'll go get 100 of them at a time that weigh 1.25 pounds to 1.5 pounds and sort through the others and get those and take them and butcher those so that they're ready to go into the freezer or for somebody to eat. So the only way you need to stock that many is if you're going to eat that many and you're on top of it paying attention to it. That's with feeding and aeration. There's Bill Russell. All right. Put some hybrid bluegill in as well. Yeah, you can do that to diversify the fishery. Now, let me tell you a little tip here that you're not going to read anywhere or hear anywhere. If you have a catfish pond and catfish are your target species and you put hybrid bluegills in there, when it comes time to catch those catfish, the hybrid bluegill are going to wart you to death. That's a word that's not in the dictionary. Our assistant, I've tried to put that in a story last issue and it got edited out. Harass you to death. So in other words, if you're fishing for catfish, be ready for those dadgum hybrid sunfish to wear you out. So you'll have to change baits or fish a little bit differently. Let's see here. Kenneth Primo, Leanne's checking in. Frank James, nice haircut. Hey, man, I got my haircut today. Debbie said I was getting a little bit shaggy, which I kind of knew that. When the hair on your ears is growing longer than the hair on your head and your eyebrows start looking like an old congressman's, you got to get it cut. So I put on my mask. I went to Sports Clips in Sherman today and got my hair cut. And it only cost $23. Is that good? I don't know. Okay, Chad Bowman, we'll shoot. No sound at the pond. Only 4 little bullheads in the trap today. I'll watch the rerun. Uh-oh. Chad Bowman is out near West Texas, Eastland area, and he's got a pond out there that just by some happenstance of fate, he wound up with a bunch of bullhead catfish in it. And he's built a trap. I taught him how to build a trap. He's built a cone, a cylindrical trap with a cone in one end of it where the fish can swim in it. So he baits it with fish food. And he's been catching hundreds and thousands of them. He's only got 4 today. That's a good sign. It also might be that your trap's in water too deep, Chad. If your pond has got a thermocline, if your pond average is 8 feet deep and your thermocline sits at 4 and you got a trap at 5 feet, you're not going to trap very many fish. All right. Good evening, Michael Eric, Jacob West. Excited about the new layout. Hey, I am too. I can't wait for you guys to see it. It's going to be pretty dadgum cool. So Justin says, the whole neighborhood will fish at my pond and take a lot out. Okay, I'm all in. Now, I tell you another Justin, another way to do that, one thing I don't know, being on the left coast, is how available fish are for you to buy. And I would think somebody out there is a consistent producer of catfish, because it's really hard to transport fish into California. Now another practical way to do that would be to stock them at 200 at a time. Stock 200, feed them, add a couple hundred more, feed them, add a couple hundred more, feed them. When they start hitting those catchable sizes, start taking some out. And do it kind of like nature would do it. Recruit. Start off with some, add some later, and build it up. If you put 1,000 of them in there and you feed the heck out of them, it's going to be a burden to harvest them. Here's another little tip about catfish, is not all of them will bite a hook. You need to know that. Now, most of them will come to fish food, which means one of my strategies would be, depending on how easy you could harvest fish from that pond, I would have a seine and be feeding in a corner to where you could pull a seine behind the fish as they're feeding and capture a bunch of them at once if the neighbors aren't catching all the fish. Because the neighbors can catch a bunch of them, but there's going to be close to half of them, at least 40%, that won't bite a hook for whatever reason. I don't know. It's just always been that way. So let's see. There's Jerry Anderson. What about tiger bass in a pond? Lots of bluegill to feed on. I think that's a great choice. Tiger bass, because tiger bass are. I'm a big fan of tiger bass. Dan Pardee, making my quarter-acre pond larger, going to drain it down and make it a half-acre. I have lots of fatheads and blunt-nosed minnows in the pond. How much water do I need to leave in the pond for them to survive the addition? Dan, I don't know where you are, but I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you that you're going to need probably 3 feet since you're doing it in the middle of the summer. So I would keep at least 3 feet of water. But here's a better answer. Make sure the water's a little bit deeper than a great blue heron can wade. They're not going to wade much up into their feathers. So that's probably 24 to 28 inches. So I'd say 3 feet. You're in Michigan? Okay, so you're not going to be hammered quite as bad with hot temperatures, although you're going to. You're going to have some hot temperatures when that pond is drawn down. So I'm going to tell you 3 feet. If you can leave 3 feet, then your survival rates are going to go up. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I'm taking you at your word that you've got fatheads and blunt nose, but if you've got any predators, yellow perch, crappie, smallmouth bass, walleye, largemouth bass, if you've got any predators in there, when that pond draws down, it concentrates those bait fish, guess what? They're going to get eaten. And then when the pond fills back up, everything's going to spawn again. So part of that's going to be determined by how long your pond stays down. Holy cow, it's already 10 till 7. I do have some answers about the summer stuff. Okay, let's see. Justin, little fishing derbies and such. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. There's John Wilson checking in from Columbus, Ohio. Good to see you, man. Justin, you're welcome. Daniel, are there good options for solar-powered aerators? You know what? The solar-powered aerators are beginning to become affordable. And so I'm going to tell you, yes, there are. 7 or 8 years ago, a solar-powered aeration system for your pond would be close to 10 grand. And now they're down closer to about 4. So I'm going to tell you that solar-powered aeration systems have gotten to be a little more economically feasible. Now, of course, you got to have sun. You got to remember, when you average out the whole year long, half the time you got sunlight, half the time you don't. And the half the time that you do, part of that time, depending on where you are, you got cloud cover. So one of the reasons that these aeration systems are expensive is not only for the solar panels, but for the battery packs that it takes to charge them up so that these systems can run a lot. Justin, there's Chris Blood checking in, Texas Hunter. Look here, I got a Texas Hunter hat right there. There it is. Texas Hunter checking in, one of our sponsors. That's cool. All right, so Justin, he says, we have fisheries, but you have to get the pond site evaluated and get your stocking permit. It's a process heavily regulated. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. So I don't know that I have a real good answer for you on that, other than you live in California and chose to live there. And you were looking for a place in Mississippi, and it's a little different in Mississippi. There's Josie checking in. Josie and Wayne are checking in. Hey, Josie, Wayne, I got to meet a retired Air Force logistics guy that spent some time overseas. I heard some fantastic stories today. He's got a pond not far from where we are, and it was really, really fun to listen to him. There's Ryan Freeze checking in. Hi, Ryan. Good to see you, buddy. So here's the kind of things you need to expect in summertime with your ponds. Each species of fish and each size class of each species of fish is going to have a little bit different requirements for growth. Of course, I hammer the topic of habitat to death on these broadcasts. Habitat's huge. Water quality's huge. And so if you've got really, really good water chemistry that is stable and the chemistry isn't fluctuating up and down because you have too many plants, or your plankton bloom's out of control, or you got blue-green algae, or things like that, if it's too eutrophic or whatever, what happens is if your water is stable and you got good habitat, your growth rate's going to be pretty good. Steve Lewis just said, "Hey, Bob, it's hot here." That's when they call it hot springs. You have hot springs and hot summers. Woo, I'm just tickled myself. That was pretty funny, Bob. Good job. The things that you expect in summertime is you expect to see explosive growth of some plants while other plants deteriorate. Curly leaf pondweed, for example. John Wilson's probably nodding his head. About now is when curly leaf pondweed is maxed out and it's going to start to decline. But if you live up north, in the northern tier of states, that right now Eurasian milfoil is going to be one of your biggest enemies. That stuff can grow like crazy. So one of the things I would encourage you guys to do is really, really learn about the different kinds of plants that you've got. If you've got, like I know that the Lancasters have bushy pondweed, and I'm trying to work to help get that figured out for you guys as well. I've just got a few obstacles to overcome here with scheduling and things. So you've got to learn about those plants and learn what their nature is and how they behave. Because you might go out there like Jacob's talking about. He had a great plankton bloom 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, came out, and it's gone. Well, that happens because in the summertime, things speed up. It's a faster process. Biological things are going quicker. And it's all related to temperature. Realtors tell you the three most important things with real estate is location, location, location. Well, I'm going to tell you this. With fisheries, the three most important things are temperature, temperature, temperature. That drives everything that's going to happen. Now, what happens is things become more aggressive with plant life, with blue-green algae, with the chemistry of water changing with the biology of the water. That's the kind of things that are happening in the summer. Growth rates are going to be logarithmic for a while. Logarithmic meaning that like a baby bass that was hatched 6 weeks ago that was about this big is now this big. And it's probably one of the last 5% of what the school size was because the rest of them got eaten and he probably ate his fair share, or she did. And so now what will happen as the temperature rises, you're going to see some growth rates begin to level off. It's going to become a little bit more stressful to fish. And you're going to see your plant life continue to expand with different species. So if you've got too much aquatic plant life right now, don't wait much longer to do anything about it. Because if you wait till middle of July or end of July, it's going to be a little bit hot. And you don't want to deal with it when it's too hot. So if you want to deal with it now. So those are some of the summertime tips that's going to go on with the pond. And like I was talking about earlier with Jacob's situation, your plankton blooms are going to ebb and flow. You're going to see a tendency for ponds to produce more blue-green algae in the summertime than they do in the spring. So pay attention to those kind of things and if you'll watch the pond, catch some fish, weigh and measure some fish. If you're tagging fish, right now is a good time to do it. When the water gets a little bit hotter, you're going to want to back off on handling fish too much. I let a high school kid come fish in my pond over the weekend in one of the ponds, and he caught about a 4-pound bass, dropped it on the ground, didn't wet his hands, picked it up, had dirt on it, held it up for a picture, put it on a measuring board, and I just gritted my teeth because, the odds of that fish being injured just went up. It's going to be bruised. Its slime coat's going to be compromised. If that fish is not in superior health, he's going to float up dead in a few days. Well, thank goodness I haven't seen a dead fish. So I'm hoping that it was resilient enough that it made it, and it was a thrill to watch the kid catch it because I was mowing the grass and watched. I saw him hook in, hook up, watched him catch that fish, and just the joy on that kid's face. It was just, that made it worth it. Just handle your fish better. There's Perry Watkins checking in. Maggie Hackler, should I use 2,4-D for topwater weed control in a pond used for fishing and possibly cull fish could be eaten? I won't spray a large area just around the dock on a 2-acre pond. I used to drag it out with a rake, but that's too much already. I'll tell you this. This is going to be a broad brush statement for everybody. If you want to treat some plants, I'll tell you what. There's a really good article in the July-August issue of Pond Boss that tells you how to do this. But I'm going to give you a little bit of the gist of that story. Hey, Pond Boss magazine, $35 a year. You know what I say? Hey, $35 cheaper than a Friday night date, and this lasts a year, and the date's gone that night. So I have people tell me all the time they get 1 or 2 nuggets out of each issue, and I'm hoping that you'll get more nuggets than that. And I deeply appreciate everybody that has subscribed to the magazine. This is the economy that fuels what we do. That and some advertisers and sponsorship, one of which is Texas Hunter. We appreciate Texas Hunter feeders. Go to TexasHunterProducts.com and you can see their lineup. They get everything from fish feeders to deer blinds to wildlife feeders and chum feeders for roads and things. If you want to feed quail, things like that. So they got some really good products. And Purina Mills is one of our sponsors. And I have highly endorse their Aquamax line of fish foods. Perfect. Those are the best fish foods on the market out there. So, Maggie, to answer your question, I'm going to give it a more of a broad brush answer. If you guys will go to Aquaplant at the Texas A&M University website, be sure you identify the plant. That's job one. Don't buy any chemicals, nothing, until you're absolutely positive of that plant. And if you know what the plant is, then on that website, it's going to show you your different options for herbicides. And there's, none of us know what we don't know. So going onto that website, you can identify the plant and then look at your best choices. 2,4-D is a contact killer. So let's see here. For topwater weed control, I don't know what topwater weed you have. So knowing the kind of plant that you've got, the species, that's real important. Because you could go spend $50 on a herbicide and kill plants you don't intend and not kill the ones that you do intend. So job one, identify the plants. Go to Aquaplant. The University of Florida's got a really nice aquatic plant website too that helps you identify plants. So do that and then look at the recommendations. And then once you see that, then we can talk more about it. On your question about the cullfish could be eaten, absolutely. I would eat the cullfish. Now, follow the label on the herbicide. Depending on the herbicide you choose, most of them are pretty environmentally friendly. They're contact killers for the most part, and they break down depending on which one you choose. Some of them are kind of a salt that when they hit the water, the plant takes them up. They break down within 2 or 3 hours. You just read the label and follow what the label says. But I'm going to tell you, yes, you can eat cullfish. Highly recommend it. We eat cullfish all the time. All right, Michael Isley, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Good job. Let's see, Brian McGuire is joining in. Stephen Gordon. There's Willie Howell checking in. Hey, Willie, good to see you, buddy. Sorry I missed you last weekend. Clark Cole checking in. Stephen Gordon says, we have one pond with a lot of shiners and other ponds with none. Would it be beneficial to cast net some and transplant to the better bass pond? I'll tell you, Stephen, I'm going to give you this answer. Not now. That's something that needs to be done in March while the golden shiners are gravid, while they have eggs. The biggest benefit that those shiners would have in another pond would be able to reproduce and establish like they've done in that pond. So if you take them now and you move them over there, odds are high that they're going to get eaten before they get a chance to reproduce. So if you're wanting to establish some, wait until next March, then cast net some and move them over there. And if you're having a hard time finding them, feed them. You'll feed them starting about the second week of March. Of course, I don't know where you are, but if you'll feed them and get them coming to a feeder, then they're a whole lot easier to catch. Now, something else. Hey, there's Rick Best. Hello, Rick. He's checking in from Laurinburg, North Carolina. Ronnie Carroll is checking in. Let's see here. I know I missed something. Christopher Aguilar, I have a lot of floating stuff in the pond. Looks like dead algae. Depends on the color. If you look at it and it's got a darker color, like a grayish color or kind of black, then chances are that is periphyton that's breaking loose from the bottom of the pond and floating up. And if you were to tap it, it would break apart and then sink. If it's green, it's mats of floating algae or floating mats of dead algae. So if it's kind of a yellowish color or a green, it's algae, which is pretty common this time of year. Let's see here. Let's see. Kenneth Dwagons, Pond Boss Magazine, worthy enough to display next to the throne. I love how you spelled throne. That's pretty good. Yeah, Kenneth, you know what? I get some of my best reading done by the throne. Woo! I just don't wear a crown. Ronnie Carroll's joined back in. I see him there. Okay, let's see. Stephen Gordon, Southmaid. Shoot, that's right around the corner. Hey, I see Sam Rodriguez, one of our most favorite teachers ever. There's Sam Rodriguez. Chris Blood, what would be one of the top articles ever published in Pond Boss Magazine and why? Woo-wee. You know what? I'm going to tell you, Chris and everybody, I think one of the most important articles that's ever been published in Pond Boss Magazine is called The Majesty of Water. That article explains how water operates. It explains the physics of water. It explains the physical part of water, how things dissolve, how water behaves. That's probably one of the best articles we've ever published. Another one is I think it's called Pond Management 101, which takes you through the fundamental process of how to manage a pond, where we talk about managing water chemistry, talk about providing habitat, talk about the best food chain, what to think about genetics, and then a harvest program. And I've got those two articles archived back. If any of you guys want those, and you promise me you subscribe to Pond Boss Magazine, hey, $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and lasts a lot longer, then I'll send you those articles. So send an email to me at info@pondboss.com, and I will send you those two articles. Just in there say, hey, Bob, I like those two articles you talked about. One of them is The Majesty of Water, and the other one is, I think, Pond Management 101, I think is the name of that. So, throw me some questions, kids. I need something to talk about. I'm going to run out of summer topics in a minute. Let me think about it. It is 7:03. Early, okay, let's do it this way. Springtime is when the season kicks in. That's when your spawning happens. So now spawning has waned, except for channel catfish. They're the last fish to spawn. In freshwater, warm water ponds, crappie spawn first, then comes bass, then comes golden shiners, fathead minnows, and bluegill about the same time. Then comes red ear sunfish, then comes the bluegill again, and then the channel cat and blue catfish, they finish up. And they're finishing up about right now in southern waters. You probably got another week to 2 weeks in the Midwest and northern waters for channel cat to spawn. So, you're past that. You're post-spawn. So the fish that have reproduced, they're wanting to eat and get in better shape, better body condition. That's why feeding is real important right now. If you're feeding your fish, that's good. And I would pay attention to how much they eat. Be sure that they're consuming what you're feeding, and if they're consuming it too fast, step it up a notch. Because when the water temperature gets a little bit warmer, they're going to step it down a notch. They're going to feed less. Their metabolism rate, especially largemouth bass, above 83 degrees, that's the magic number for largemouth bass. At 83 degrees, largemouth bass feeding wanes. Their metabolism rate slows down. They're going to spend time in the thermocline. It's more important for them to have cooler water than it is to have food and more oxygen. So temperature is a big, big deal. Then the plants are going to grow, so you need to be paying attention to that. But right now, fish are operating pretty much at their peak capacity in terms of growth rates. Now, the speed of the growth rate is going to slow down as we progress into the summer. Plus, there's more mouths to feed because you got all these little babies in there that haven't been eaten yet. They will be, unless you've got perfect habitat for them to escape, good escape habitat for them to escape and congregate and avoid being eaten too fast. Here's something to kind of drive home the point of habitat. You know, if you've got a little bit of plant life that's not around the dock and not bugging you, you can pretty well bet that baby fish are going to be hiding in that. And when a baby bluegill is first hatched, I don't know who did this, but I want to meet them and say thank you, whoever counted these fish. 12,000 baby bluegill weigh 1 pound. But if you can keep them alive 45 days, 30 of them make a pound. So what that means to us is if they've got escape cover and food long enough to live from March until, you know, halfway through May, then the next spawn in May, if they can make it till the end of June, they're going to be about that big. They're way, way, way better food. And that's habitat driven, and that's feeding driven and plankton bloom. So Jacob, circling back to your question about the plankton bloom, the timing of your plankton bloom was perfect because you had bluegill on beds, and they're not there now because they reproduced. So when those baby bluegills came off the beds and off the nests and went out into the real world in your lake, they had food. So your survival rates for fathead minnows, bluegill, and probably red ear are going to be astonishingly high for a while. And you're not going to have any bass in there to feed them until we stock those fish later. Let's see. Let's see here. Chris Rigoni, any tip for catching rainbow trout that eat MVP all afternoon? I cannot get a pellet sound. Look. Yeah, I tell you what I would do there, Chris. Oh, I see Michael Eric asked a question. Little Dr. Pepper. Okay, Chris, I'm going to answer yours first. On catching rainbow trout, take some of that MVP and moisten it and moisten it with water, and then mix it with some cornstarch to thicken it, and then make little balls out of that, and that'll work better if you want to try to catch the trout with that MVP. Okay, Michael says, do I want to have structure out from where my feeders throw feed to protect young fish? I'd say you want structure adjacent to the pattern. You've got a Texas Hunter feeder, best feeder on the market. It's going to throw that feed in a straight line about 40 feet. You look at that pattern because it's V-shaped. You want to be just adjacent to that in water that's about no deeper than about 5 feet for your dense cover for baby bait fish to be able to hide. So if they want to come out and eat and then scurry right back into that cover, they can. Now, depending on where you place there goes the vehicle. Depending on where you place the feeder, if you're feeding fish out over deeper water, odds are you're going to attract some bass that are not attracted to eat the fish food as much as they're attracted to eat what eats the fish food. So you'll probably see some of a feeding frenzy going on there. So in terms of having your structure, you don't want it directly in the line of fire. You want it adjacent to the line of fire if you can do that. Jacob West, we watch spawning bluegills chase away crawfish from their beds. The things that entertain. Yeah, that is pretty entertaining. And those bluegill, the crawfish, the crawfish, they'd love to come eat bluegill eggs, but the bluegill are not quite so interested in that. So they're definitely going to chase those crawfish away. Sandra O'Connick, new subscriber last month. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Welcome to the Palm Boss family. We're near Columbia, South Carolina. 2.7 acre pond. Our monk spillway opens and closes at will. Has sinkholes in the back of the dam. I'm guessing where the pipe used to be. We dug a ditch overflow to maintain the level when the spillway closes up on its own. Okay, I'm not sure what a monk spillway is. Our monk spillway. I really do want to answer that question, so let me think about it. I'm going to say monk, maybe you're meaning main spillway, opens and closes at will. I don't know how a spillway opens and closes at will. I don't know how that works. There's sinkholes in the back of the dam. We dug a ditch overflow to maintain the level when the spillway closes up on its own. Yeah, help me figure out what a monk spillway is, and I'll have some recommendations. But let me go this direction. And I know Michael Gray's listening, and he's got his hand up. He wants to talk about it. I see Robbie Shell checking in from Purina Mills. I just got through talking about Aquamax feeds and some feeding programs for bluegills and stuff, Rob. But Sandra, here's what I'm going to tell you. A dam has a job. Look at it as a structure, like a building. It needs to be built on a good foundation, and its job is to impound water and then release excess water in an orderly fashion. That's a dam's job. Now, the way that your water is released, I'm not getting the good visual picture of what you mean about your spillway. I've not seen spillway pipes that open and close with some will. I don't know how that works. So I'd have to see that. But I know the way it should be designed is there should be, even in a 2.7 acre pond, a primary spillway, which a lot of times is a pipe. And that pipe allows excess water from normal runoff to overflow. Then the spillway is for emergencies. It's designed, the pipe size is designed based on the watershed and how much water is going to be coming in through a normal rainfall event. And normal in Columbia is probably going to be up to 4 inches. If it's more than 4 inches over a 6 or 8 hour period, that's when the emergency spillway kicks in. So the pipe would be flowing. So if you got a sinkhole in the back and your pipe is collapsed, that means your primary spillway isn't doing what it should do. So if it's intermittent, it could be that it's collapsed because you have a sinkhole and you got water flowing into it, but unless it pushes the dirt out, it's not going to do its job, which you need an earth mover. You need an earth mover to come take a look at that. Square cement structure, valve in the bottom, 13 feet deep. Okay. Square cement structure. That should not open and close on its own will. It should stay open. The valve, if you got a concrete structure, it should be designed where overflow water can go down the concrete structure and flow out of the pond during a rainfall event. With the valve on it, you should be able to open the valve to draw the lake down. Now, if that valve has been there a long time, don't open it unless people have done that before. Don't open it. I would get, since you're in South Carolina, I tell you who you need to call. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do. Stand by here a minute, because I'm looking at Pond Boss Magazine. You just subscribed to it, by the way. Thank you very much. Let's see. I'm looking for the index of advertisers here. Okay, pond dam piping. You need to call Pond Dam Piping. Let me see. They're on page 48 of this issue of the magazine. Here they are. Give them a call. Look at ponddampiping.com is their website. Phone number is 800-333-2611. And I'm pretty dadgum sure they're in South Carolina. Even if they're not, they're in Georgia. I can't remember where they are exactly, but that's who you need to talk to. That's who can answer. That's who's going to know somebody that can come out and take a look at that. So don't open the valve if it hasn't been opened, because a lot of times when you open those valves that have been there for a long time, you can't shut them. And that once you get a pond flowing and you can't stop it, it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Let's see, Ed Brewer, I'm in Casey with a 1.75 acre pond, Sandra. Okay, so we got a little side conversation going on there. Yeah, so Sandra, my recommendation is call Pond Dam Piping and see if they can help. So let's see here. Let me scroll down here again. Look at there. They're talking. Oh, the valve is open all the time, but the exit pipe closes up. Right now it overflows the top, but sometimes it fills all the way up and doesn't drain. Okay, you know what? Yeah, talk to Pond Dam Piping, because that's not normal. It should not just fill up and sit unless beavers have clogged it up and it drains slowly or something like that. Or if, like you're talking about, if it's collapsed and you got a sinkhole on the back where that pipe, if it's corrugated metal, lasts about 20 years, it certainly could have decomposed, rotted, corroded, and collapsed. It sure could. So, all right, anybody got any more questions? Bring them to me. I like to talk, and I'm kind of struggling for a topic. Let me see here. I'll tell you what, let me look here in Pond Boss Magazine. Y'all have heard of that one thing, haven't you? Let's see here. Let me see what some of the topics are in here. Something else I haven't discussed much on here is, here's something that's really cool. You guys will like this. I know you'll like this. When you, like Justin Shank, let me tell you what's going to happen. When you start Christopher Aguilar wants to know I'm going to go down to Cedar Mills to, they've got a restaurant over here at the lake, and tonight's catfish night. So I'm going to go eat catfish. Hey, if anybody's in the neighborhood, come on. They close at 9. I'm going to go over there about 8 o'clock and eat. So if anybody's in the neighborhood, I'll buy. All right, let's see. So Dale Baden with Texas Hunter. Good to see Dale checking in. Pomba says all the answers, a must-have resource. Well, thank you for that. There's Alicia Galloway. She's my cousin's daughter, which I guess that makes us second cousins. Bruce Condello. Bruce, Lincoln, Nebraska. Good to see you, Bruce. Here's what I was going to tell Justin Shank, and this applies to everybody. The more intensive that you manage your pond, and intensive means that you don't just leave it to its own devices. If you're aerating, if you're managing water chemistry, if you're managing the plants, if you're propagating fish, if you're feeding fish, if you're being proactive to make that pond highly productive, what you're doing will transcend the water. What you're doing beneath the water line will impact what happens above the water line. And here's a perfect example of that. A well-fed, well-balanced fishery in a pond is going to produce extra numbers of aquatic insects. And let's just pick 2 or 3. There's damselflies, dragonflies, there's Dobson flies, mayflies. So when you're managing the pond well and your fish ratios are healthy, your water's healthy, you're going to see more productivity of insects. When you see that happen, you're going to see things that like to eat those insects. Guess what a dragonfly eats? And I know about half of you are raising your hand because we talk about this. Yeah, that's right, mosquitoes. And guess what eats dragonflies? Songbirds. So what you see is you have, as you create and manage a pond that's healthy, you're going to see things going on, like at Kingfisher Society, Richmond Mill Lake. We started seeing incidents of mosquitoes plummet. We saw cottonmouth water moccasin numbers go down as the bass numbers went up. Bass ate them. As the fish population expanded, we started catching a few 2-pound plus bluegills. We saw a pair of ospreys come in and nest. And then a pair of bald eagles started showing up. Otters started showing up. Raccoons would swim out and spin the spinners on the feeders and eat the fish food. An alligator even swam into that lake once. Didn't stay very long. Guess it migrated in, migrated out. Okay, so Fred set me straight. Your first cousin's daughter is technically your first cousin once removed. Perfect. Uh-oh, throat's going. That's good. I can leave it to Fred and Connie to keep me straight on stuff I don't know, and that's one of them. I know we're kinfolk, and she's going to be coming to the family reunion that we had to cancel because of Corona. So where I'm going with this is one thing that's really exciting is you'll start to see things going on above the waterline. You'll see more songbirds. You'll see more migratory birds. Some of these things you're not going to like. You don't want river otters to come eat the fish that you've nurtured and cared for a long, long time. You don't want to see cormorants flying in and pillaging the whole dadgum pond. You don't want to see that, So you need to be vigilant in your observations. And if you're managing a pond well, you'll see it, and you're going to see trends that are going to happen. You see different plants grow. I mean, at Richmond Mill Lake, they started growing. There's some plants growing in that lake that I am confident that are a byproduct of a heavy feeding program and a heavy fish population. We saw more bladderwort. We saw all kinds of Kelly Duffy's on here. He'll tell me the real name. We call it snot bonnet. Frog bit, that's the name of it. So you'll see changes in aquatic plants. You'll see changes in what's going on, with what's growing around the waterline. You'll see different kinds of reeds and rushes, things like that grow. Then you'll start to see more activity from small mammals. You'll see raccoons creating trails all the way around the pond, trying to get their fair share. So when you create a bounty, nature wants to share it. So be aware of that. And some of it's pretty cool. I mean, when you start seeing a whole lot more, songbirds, it's because they have food source, They have great habitat, place to nest, and safety. You know, if you've got that, you got it. David Watkins, sawgrass. Sawgrass is pretty dadgum invasive. It's also called giant cutgrass. There's David, if you missed it, go look at, I talked about it earlier, about Aquaplant. Texas A&M's got a really good website about plants, aquatic plants. So job one, if you're saying sawgrass, you know what sawgrass is. It's not easy to manage, but it's worth it to manage it because it can become so invasive that it crowds everything else out. So I'd pay attention to that. So is paraphyton a bad thing? No, paraphyton is a good thing. And I love the way you spelled it. That's the Cajun way. For everybody else, it's Periphyton, if you want to look it up. Paraphyton is basically colonies of bacteria and algae that attach to a substrate. Like when you see it float up in a pond, it's typically because it's attached to a sandy bottom or sandstone or even a clay. And as it does what it does during the daytime, the algae in it is photosynthesizing, creating oxygen. And if that oxygen bubble doesn't release, it makes that little bundle of goo buoyant, and it breaks loose from its substrate and it floats to the top. And then it'll blow it to the shore, and then it's gone. So paraphyton is actually a really good thing that every pond has it. What paraphyton does is it's a food source for certain insects, like dragonfly nymphs. They love to eat that. You know, and Dobson fly nymphs, mayfly nymphs, they love to eat that paraphyton. But secondarily, the bacteria in paraphyton is extracting nutrients from the water and fixing that and turning it into what it is. So it's eating extra phosphorus, it's eating nitrogen, it's consuming it. It's breaking down some of the organic waste matter that builds up in your water. So it's part of nature's filter process. So paraphyton serves a big purpose. So it's beneficial microbes. That's the good way to look at it. So when it flows to the top and looks bad, we don't like that. So there's things you can do about it using other beneficial microbes and some enzymes to kind of help break it down. And I see that stuff in lakes that have a lot of stone, riprap, things like that. That's where I really see that stuff, and it really manifests itself in quantities in the summer. So right now is about the time that you're going to start seeing that. All right, let's see. Maggie says, I have a great turtle trap. Should I continually keep the trap out all summer, catch as many as I can, or are they really a problem? Red ear and sliders and some snappers. You're probably not going to catch snapping turtles in a turtle trap unless it's a soft shell. If you catch a soft shell turtle and you want to eat it, eat it. There's some good recipes out there. As a matter of fact, if you catch one and you want to eat it, take some pictures, share your recipe, and I'll publish that in Pond Boss. Truth. I'd love to have a turtle recipe with some good pictures. I'll tell you this. Here's what I tell people about turtles. I don't see turtles as a problem. Now, I'm going to set that aside and come back to it. Turtles are a part of what you should expect in a pond. And they're part of that above the water sort of bounty. Because if you've got a good, healthy pond that's producing, you're going to attract more turtles. Now, where turtles can be a problem, there's two things they can do that bother you. One is when you see so many, you say that they're a problem. But I'll tell you this. If a fish gets eaten by a turtle, the fish deserved it. Except with snappers. In a pond, you're not going to see very many snapping turtles. You think you might, but you don't. You know, in a 1 acre pond, if you've got 2 big alligator snapping turtles or common snapping turtles, that's about all you can expect, and they're not going to decimate a fishery. The red ear sliders, painted turtles, mud turtles, like that, they're going to eat your fish food. You know, I mean, I've got 6 ponds back here that are hatchery ponds, and 2 of them, there's been a turtle hatch, and there's about 15 little turtles like that look like little steamboats swimming over to eat that young fish food. So I'm probably going to trap and relocate some up here to Lake Texoma, not far from me. But, yeah, Christopher Aguilar, of course, he's got some, you know what, dude, you'd be the one to send me a recipe. When next time you butcher a snapping turtle, especially a soft shell snapping turtle, I want to hear about it. Tell me about it. So, but anyway, I see turtles as part of nature. But if you got too many, I don't see any reason to not trap them. That's okay. Kelly Lewicki had a feed store employee recommend Carmex. It's got lots of good reviews and is used in catfish farms in Mississippi, but I've heard a lot of bad too. Well, it should not ever be used ever in a pond. Ever. Ever. It is not labeled, and if it's used in a catfish, I can't imagine that Carmex is used in commercial catfish farms anymore. I'm confident that it was used in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, but once people started to figure out that what it does to aquatic environments, they quit using it because it's got a long half-life. It builds up. I haven't seen this many times, but I've seen it once or twice, where a pond was sterilized by a guy using Carmex against the law, which it's not labeled for water. If somebody like me ever use it, $10,000 fine. And I'm not interested in that, but I'm even less interested in using it because it's bad. And I'll tell you why. The not labeled for use, that's a bad enough reason right there. But it's not selective. And I'll tell you, you guys tell me you like to hear the stories. There's I want to think about how much backstory to tell you. Oh, I got 3 minutes. I'm going to tell you just a little bit. A man built a 3-acre pond not far from here, 40 miles, back in the 80s because it should have been a 20-acre lake, but he had about 25 big pecan trees, of which about 10 of those were along the shore. He didn't want to flood those trees because he wanted the shade for the pond. So he made the pond smaller, made the dam bigger, made the spillway bigger so that he wouldn't flood the pecan trees. One year he had some algae that he couldn't kill. So he went and bought some Carmex, treated it, and killed every pecan tree sitting on the shore. Every one of them died. He overdosed it, but it's not selective. It's just not good to use it, so let's don't use it. David Watkins says, well, fish feeders attract moccasins. No, the fish feeders will not attract moccasins. The fish that eat the fish food will attract moccasins sometimes. Now, it's not common that I see water moccasins come around a fish feeder. They're a little bit more coy than that. Where they are, they're going to be in swampy areas with strong cover, where they do have a ready supply of plenty of the right kind of fish. They like to eat catfish. Bullheads are a prime source of food for them. They'll eat mice. They'll eat shrews. They'll eat minnows if they can catch them. So, but they're not going to come to a fish feeder because it's a fish feeder. Now they might be groomed to come to a fish feeder to catch a fish. I could see them doing that. But I've been around snakes a long, long time. I used to be afraid of them. I'm not anymore because I'm respectful of them. I don't like them any more than I did 40-something years ago, but I'm more respectful because I know that we're going to coexist with them. And if I'm going to go into their environment, I need to know I need to know that they're there and what to expect. So there's Todd Austin checking in toward the end of the game here. We got about 1 minute, so I'm going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me again. I appreciate you guys spending time and listening to this. Is it a bad idea to feed off of a swimming dock? I've done that, and I don't think it's a bad idea because if you've got habitat over there that the fish like, they're going to come to the feed and they're going to eat the fish food, then they're going to go home. Now it's a bad idea to set the feeder to go off at the same time you're going to swim. We got a swimming dock at our house in the swimming pond, and I had a feeder on the dock a long, long time. I moved it because I wanted the space on the dock for people. So I'm going to tell you it's okay to do that. Hey, $35 a year, Pond Boss Magazine. Go to pondboss.com. If you guys want to communicate with me, send an email to info@pondboss.com. I'll do the best I can to answer those questions. And, every Wednesday, for wherever I am, we try to do this show. And I appreciate you guys and gals tuning in. And stay in touch. And until next Wednesday, adios.